easily a top 16 seed. This has been a season of missed opportunities for Bruce Pearl and company. Look at the games that they could have. If they had played better, I think they lost by 7 to North Carolina State. The only real blowout loss they've suffered was against Ole Miss when they lost by 15, but they lost by 2 points to Kentucky. They lost by 3 points to South Carolina. They lost by 8 to Mississippi State. They lost by 5 to LSU and 5 to Ole Miss in the second game. So they got swept by Ole Miss. I think if they have the talent to win games, it's just the sealing the deal has been a big problem for them during the season, and that's why they are a mid-pack seed instead of a high seed where they should have been and what the record says they should have been at the start of the year.
Let's talk a little bit about TCU today down in Fort Worth. Obviously, I don't know if we'd call it a big game, but, we pay more attention to TCU in the football world than we do in the basketball world, but certainly they've got the Cyclones coming in, number 19 Iowa State taking on the TCU. What say you on that game, sir?
TCU certainly is on the bubble right now. I think they need the marquee win, and thankfully they got 3 chances before the Big 12 tournament to get a marquee win. If you include ISU, the Cyclones is one possibility. They have a home game against Texas Tech. They have a home game against Kansas State. And they have road trips against WVU and Texas. So those are all quad one games as far as I'm concerned. And a chance to really get themselves in a more secure position in terms of the bubble. They have had their moments this season, but also like we said, they have had missed opportunities. They have lost 3 games in a row, and they have lost 5 of their last 7. That's not how you want to enter the NCAA tournament as a bubble team, including a 24-point loss to Baylor, a 20-point loss to Texas Tech. I think they need to find a way to steal a game against a team like Iowa State. Now, granted, they came within 9 points of doing that when they took on the Cyclones and Ames last month. But sooner or later, I think they're going to have to find a way to steal one of these games, because they certainly are falling into no man's land, much as they did last year when they almost missed the tournament as well.
Well, absolutely. Let's go ahead. Let's move on over to Ohio State, Maryland. Obviously, another Big Ten matchup here. We saw Maryland do a comeback take, if you will, from behind to come back and beat Iowa this past week. Maryland is the Turtles, the Terrapins, ish, but Ohio State is ish. So I'm trying to find something to get excited about with this game, but to me it's just a game to watch to pass time on a Saturday afternoon today, sir.
Ohio State, even though they're 7-9, the problem is 17-9. The problem is they're 7-8 in the Big Ten, and I don't know if a sub 500 record is the way to go to get into the NCAA tournament. Now, granted, I think they are well above the cut line at this point, but still. They are trending in the wrong direction, and certainly a great chance this weekend for them to go to College Park and take a quality win away from a Maryland team that I think is peaking and is trending upward, as opposed to the strategy and the route that most Big Ten teams are taking, it seems like, over the last few weeks.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and talk about the University of North Carolina Tar Heels, Florida State Seminoles today to kick off the afternoon games, that is. Florida State going into North Carolina. We talked a little bit about North Carolina and Duke earlier. Duke is a number 8 team. That is true. But I certainly think that this is a game that Florida State can win on the road if they go in and just play some good, solid basketball against the Tar Heels.
And I'm predicting Florida State to pull out the win in this game. I think the letdown is there. And add to that, I still am not convinced North Carolina is a top 8 seed yet, even though, yes, they're ranked top 8 in the AP poll. Of course, that has no inkling of where their actual seeding is. I think at best they are a 3 seed, if not a 4. Florida State, I think still some question marks with them right now as far as consistency goes. But obviously a golden opportunity for Florida State to really ink their claim as being a team that could be a second weekend team, if not further, when we get to the NCAA tournament in a few weeks.
We also got Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Again, this is one of those games that should be just a box checker for Kansas State as they get ready to move on into March. Certainly, we get more excited about Oklahoma State in football than we do basketball. But what are your thoughts about the matchup, Oklahoma State at Kansas State?
Well, Oklahoma State's been a spoiler the last few weeks. They've ruined, really hurts a couple teams that are on the cut line for the Big 12 as far as making the NCAAs. Kansas State, though, I think has enough in their corner to be able to find a way to get into the winner's circle today. It would put them at 21-9, and I would say very solidly in the NCAA tournament. I think it should be in status on Palm's site and on ESPN site. Victory here, and with the strength of the Big 12 right now, that should put them in lock status looking into next week.
We got South Florida at number 9, Houston. Again, a box checker for Houston, but what are your thoughts?
Again, Houston, question is just how strong is the American Athletic Conference? Because I think there's a lot of teams that are having down years, obviously most notably Wichita State, who is going to miss the tournament for the first time in several years. And obviously question marks whether or not a team like a Cincinnati or a team like a UCF deserves to be in the field as well. So I think right now the question with Houston is, just like last year when they were an early exit victim from the NCAA tournaments, is just how good are the teams they are beating in the American Athletic Conference. And I think that is still a big question mark, especially compared to last year when I think there were some teams in there that were more competitive than the current state of the conference this year. I mean, it's not necessarily down to the level where the Pac-12, where they are brutally on the verge of possibly only having one team in, but it's not as strong as, say, a Big East, an SEC, or a Big Ten, or an ACC at this point either.
We talked about Coach Boeheim earlier in Syracuse. Sad story there, and what happened with that. And certainly our thoughts and prayers go to Coach Boeheim as he coaches at home. And I think maybe this is just the element that he needs to be in to kind of help him through this. But you're Duke. You're coming in, and you know what has happened with Coach Boeheim. I'm sure Coach K has reached out on a personal level. I don't know this, but I'm just assuming that Coach K has reached out to Coach Boeheim on a personal level and tried to give him some encouragement. But you're also a competitor. You're also ranked number 1. You also suffered a loss this week that you should have won. How do I say this sensitively? Do you know what's going on with Syracuse, Coach Boeheim at home, lots of energy, want to win for Coach Boeheim, a lot of stuff on that end. But do you, as you formulate a plan, do you know in the back of your mind that this is going on? Do you use this as a competitive advantage or not?
It's hard to say. I think it's hard to fathom what the situation is with Syracuse and what they will play. Will they play hard for their coach or not? And then obviously Duke, without Zion Williamson, how hard they will push. Obviously Syracuse, the thing is, though, is that Syracuse doesn't overvalue this game if they happen to win it and then think, we're solidly in the tournament, because they did that a couple of years ago after they beat Duke at Carrier Dome, and then they just flat fell apart at the end of the year and they failed to make the tournament. And then last year they just barely made it in. They're in a much safer position for now anyway, but again, it's a tenuous position at best if they cannot hang on to it. So I think right now, if you look at the scenarios right now, obviously this is a game Syracuse has to have, but again, while Duke is vulnerable, are they vulnerable enough to allow for a victory for Syracuse, considering their vulnerability and the negative vibes they've had over the last week as well? So toss-up in this game, certainly, but I think on paper, if all things hold well, Duke should easily win this ball game. But again, that's what we thought on Wednesday against North Carolina, and that didn't happen either. So we'll see what happens. But I'd say this is getting closer to a toss-up than a sure Duke victory, as I thought it was going to be coming into this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just kind of revisit what's going on with this game. Everybody's going to be watching this game, but a little bit more intently. As we know, Coach Boeheim will coach the Orange as they host number 1 Duke Blue Devils today. But this comes after striking and killing a man with his car Wednesday night. Very tragic accident. Syracuse athletic director John Welichek made an announcement, and it read something like this. Standby says, the Jimenez family has suffered a tremendous loss. Our community is shaken. The Boheim family is heartbroken over what has happened, as we all are. This is a very difficult time, and I know that Coach Boheim's players will gain strength from him just as he gains strength from his players. Our entire community gains strength from each other, and with this in mind, and after thoughtful consideration, I have respectively decided that Coach Boheim will resume his coaching duties later today and coach against the Duke Blue Devils. Syracuse police said that Boheim hit the 51-year-old Jorge Jimenez with his vehicle on I-690 in Syracuse on Wednesday night after a car carrying Jimenez and 3 other people were crashed into a guardrail after hitting a patch of ice. The 4 people were standing outside the car when Boheim swerved to avoid the disabled vehicle, resulting in Jimenez getting hit and subsequently was killed. That's what happened with Coach Boeheim, and that's what happened with Syracuse. Let's kind of talk about that, talk through that. I know we talked a little bit about the stress factors. It sounds like it was just a tragic accident resulting from bad weather, and that just happens. And unfortunately, this is under the spotlight because of who he is and because of the fame that he has. I couldn't imagine having that happen at all on anybody's level. So you got to know that that's on their mind. And we talked a little bit earlier on that maybe this is time maybe for him to start thinking about hanging up the whistle, Matt. But at the same time, I don't know that this was something that could have been avoided. This could have happened with him even if he wasn't coaching. Go ahead. Your thoughts.
Well, the thing is, though, you still got to be careful on the roadways, even though, I mean, today's society, the thing they say about wearing light clothes like that, there was a guy that was in dark clothes last night that I nearly hit last night trying to get home. So you just got to be extremely careful on the roadways, and unfortunately, Coach Boeheim didn't necessarily do that. Now, granted, what you think of him, I don't know what the situation is. I probably shouldn't go deeper into that, but the other question in my mind, though, as far as this Duke-Syracuse matchup is, what are your thoughts on Scottie Pippen saying that Duke should shut down Zion Williamson for the rest of the year to keep his draft status up for the NBA draft? Because he said that earlier this week on ESPN.
Yeah, I saw that. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. It'd be different. I think that's a different story if you're talking about Anthony Davis and the Pelicans. But you're talking about a college basketball player who is in a free ride to go to college to play basketball. You absolutely should play him. Now, yes, I know that he's injured, but, yeah, Scottie Pittman's remarks were absolutely stupid. But, hey, you got to remain relevant. We got to be talking about –
Isn't the same time, though, with guys skipping the bowl games and shutting down? Is that on a similar wavelength with that thinking?
No, I agree 100%. I've said that too. You're getting a free ride to school. You need to play even if you are going into the NFL draft. And I get it from their aspect of it, and they're an asset, and they're trying to protect their assets, and they've got agents, and they've got a lot. So from the thought pattern of the player, I get it. But from the thought pattern of a fan and the school, I say if you can play and you're still under scholarship, you should definitely play. Let's move on down the road. Fresno State at number 6, Nevada. What say you, sir?
Nevada's got to keep winning. I think the teams left on their schedule are not going to provide any value to them. I mean, they're ranked 6th in the AP, but I think most polls or most brackets have them as a 5 or a 6 seed. So they need to keep winning ball games. I think any loss they suffer down the road the rest of the way is going to hurt them seed-wise. They should solidly be in the tournament, but I think if they're going to get a good seed, they cannot afford any losses down the rest of the way, even though, yes, Utah State is still out there. That would not be as bad a loss. But still, I think this is a team that needs to win out if they want to be in control of their destiny and get a seed they can have an easier draw to possibly the second weekend